The restaurant lights were dim, the piano was quiet, and only a few tables remained occupied. It was the kind of calm that settles after a long rush. But no one expected the moment that would make every employee freeze, every customer stare, and one powerful father question everything he thought he knew. Because in the corner of that upscale restaurant, a little girl with burn scars covering half her face shyly tugged on a waiter's apron and asked him to dance. And what happened next, what her billionaire father saw, broke his pride in a way he never imagined. Before we get into this emotional story, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps our storytelling community grow here at Your Channel Name and keeps these inspiring stories alive. Ethan didn't look like the typical waiter working at Alder and Pine, the kind of restaurant where the cheapest entree cost more than his weekly groceries. He was 32, tall, with tired but warm eyes and a soft smile he wore like a permanent part of his uniform. Between the late-night shifts and early morning school runs, he was doing his best to raise his 7-year-old son, Noah, on his own. Ethan wasn't ashamed of his life, he simply wished he had more of it to give. More time. More money. More stability. But for now, the restaurant was his lifeline. On the busiest nights, the staff often joked that Ethan didn't walk, he floated. Gentle, calm, patient. Even the meanest customers couldn't shake him. And that was probably why his manager always trusted him with VIP guests. So that night, when the reservation came in for Charles Thornton, the tech CEO worth billions and known for being colder than the ice in his whiskey, Ethan wasn't surprised to be assigned to his table. But he didn't expect the two other names on the reservation, Grace and Emily Thornton. Grace, Charles's wife. Emily, his 8-year-old daughter. Emily was rarely seen in public. Not since the accident. 2 years earlier, a house fire caused by faulty wiring left Emily trapped in her bedroom for nearly 3 minutes before firefighters got her out. She survived, but the burns left visible scars along the right side of her face and down her neck. Since then, photos of her had become tabloid fodder, and rumors spread that Charles kept her hidden because he couldn't stand the sight. He never commented. But he didn't deny it either. That night, as the Thornton family entered the restaurant, heads turned immediately. Cameras clicked. Whispers floated. And Emily shrank into herself, gripping her mother's hand, avoiding every gaze. Ethan felt something pull at him, a protective instinct, maybe. Maybe just empathy. He knew what it felt like to be stared at with judgment. He knew what it felt like to be seen as less than. When he walked to their table with menus in hand, he crouched slightly, looking at Emily first, not her father. "Welcome," Ethan said gently. "I'm really glad you're here tonight." Emily blinked, surprised. People usually pretended not to notice her, or notice too much. Ethan didn't look away. She smiled. Tiny, but real. Charles noticed too. His jaw tightened, as if the simple act of kindness threatened something in him. Dinner went smoothly at first. Grace tried keeping the atmosphere warm, ordering appetizers and asking Ethan questions about dishes. Emily remained quiet, tracing shapes on her napkin, listening more than speaking. Charles checked his phone every few minutes, arguing quietly with someone on the other end of the line. Toward the end of dinner, as the last guests filtered out and the piano player packed up for the night, a soft instrumental song began playing over the speakers, something slow, something nostalgic. Ethan brought the check to the table, and as he did, he noticed Emily gently swaying to the music. "You like this song?" he asked her. Emily nodded. My dance teacher used to play it," she said quietly. "Before the fire." Grace wiped her eyes. Charles froze, expression unreadable. No one said anything for a moment. Then Emily looked up at Ethan again, hesitating as if she were about to ask something impossible. "Can you dance?" she whispered. Grace gasped softly. Charles sat up straighter. "And Ethan, well," he simply nodded. "Not very well," he admitted, "but if you want, I'd be honored." Emily's eyes glowed with a kind of hope that made something in him ache. Charles started to object. "Emily, this is not." But she was already sliding off her chair. Grace placed a hand on her husband's arm. "Let her." The restaurant was nearly empty now. The lights were low. The music was perfect. Ethan offered his hand. Emily took it. And in the middle of an upscale restaurant, a single dad making minimum wage began to gently sway with a little girl who hadn't danced in years. Ethan didn't think about who was watching. He didn't think about the billionaire sitting at the table or the fact that he could get in trouble for this. He just moved slowly, carefully, matching Emily's steps, treating her with the kind of gentleness someone should have shown her all along. Emily giggled a soft, breathy giggle, as shy as it was brave. "You're really good," she whispered. "So are you," Ethan said. "You remember all the rhythm." "My teacher said I was her best student," Emily replied. Before everything." Ethan leaned down slightly. "I think you still are." Grace covered her mouth, tears streaming. Even some servers nearby looked like they were blinking a little too much. But Charles sat perfectly still. He wasn't crying. He wasn't smiling. He was unraveling. Because as he watched his daughter dance, laugh, glow, something hit him hard. This was the first time he had seen her this free since the fire. The first time she wasn't hiding. The first time she wasn't afraid. And it wasn't because of him. It was because a stranger had shown her kindness without hesitation. No fear. No pity. No shame. Just kindness. A knot formed in his throat. His hand trembled around his glass. And for the first time in a long time, he felt small. So small. The apology. When the song ended, Ethan knelt to Emily's level. "Thank you for the dance, Emily," he said softly. "You made my night." She beamed an unguarded, joyful smile that made her scars look like nothing more than stories on her skin. Charles stood. "Waiter," he called stiffly. Ethan turned, wondering if he was about to get fired on the spot. Instead, Charles walked toward him slowly, looking like a man carrying the weight of his entire life on his back. "You," his voice cracked slightly. "You gave my daughter something I couldn't." Ethan shook his head. "Sir, I just danced with her." "No," Charles said. "You saw her." The restaurant was silent. "I haven't known how to look at her without remembering the fire," Charles continued, swallowing hard. "Every time I tried, I saw my failure. My guilt. And she saw that in my eyes." Emily looked up at her father, confused, hopeful. Charles knelt, a powerful man bending, not from pride but from love. "Emily," he whispered, "I'm sorry. I should have danced with you first." Emily touched his cheek gently. "It's okay, Daddy." Charles broke. He pulled her into a trembling hug, holding her like he should have long ago. Ethan stepped back quietly, giving them space. Grace approached him, wiping her tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "You didn't just dance with her, you gave her father back to her." Ethan smiled softly, heart full. Sometimes kindness is all it takes. The aftermath. The next week, when Ethan arrived at work, his manager rushed toward him holding an envelope with shaking hands. "What did you do?" she demanded. Ethan's stomach dropped. "Is this about dancing with that little girl?" I'm sorry, I didn't think." "Open it." Inside was a letter on thick, embossed stationery. And a check. A check with more zeros than Ethan had ever seen in his life. The letter read, "Your kindness changed my daughter's life. And mine. This is not charity, this is gratitude. Use it to give your son the life you work so hard for. Charles Thornton." Ethan stared, speechless. For the first time in years, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. Not because of the money, but because kindness had come full circle. Kindness doesn't need permission. It doesn't need wealth. It doesn't need status. Sometimes it takes just one gentle moment, one human connection, to heal wounds that pride, fear, or silence have only made deeper. A single dad waiter didn't change the world that night. But he changed a little girl's heart. And humbled a father who desperately needed to remember what love looked like.